The sound that interrupted their wait was something Jiwon had never heard before. It was high-pitched and piercing, making his ears hurt. All around the observation room, lights began flashing red. The peaceful quiet of moments ago was suddenly replaced by chaos. Through the window, Jiwon could see crew members running through the corridors of the Council flagship. The aliens were moving in a way that looked panicked and disorganized. Some were running in circles. Others had simply frozen in place, their bodies locked up as if they could not decide what to do. "What is happening?" Suman asked, moving closer to the door. Before anyone could answer, the door opened and a Velnar officer stumbled in. His eyes were wide with fear, and his hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the datapad he was carrying. "Emergency," he gasped. "There is an emergency. All delegates must remain here for safety." "What kind of emergency?" Jiwon asked, keeping his voice calm even though his heart had started beating faster. "Pirates," the officer said, and his voice cracked on the word. "Pirates have attacked one of our transport vessels. The Nest of Stars. It was carrying students on an educational journey. Children. 4,200 children." The color drained from Suman's face. Hyeji put a hand over her mouth. Even Minho, who rarely showed emotion, looked shocked. "Where is the transport now?" Jiwon asked. 3 light hours from here. The pirates disabled the engines and life support systems. They are demanding ransom. If we do not pay, they will... The officer could not finish the sentence. He looked like he might be sick. "What is the council doing to respond?" Minho asked, stepping forward. His voice had changed. It was sharper now, more focused. "High Counselor Thalen is convening an emergency session. Our defense fleet requires 90 minutes to mobilize. We will negotiate with the pirates. We will pay what they ask. This is standard protocol." 90 minutes, Taeyang repeated softly. "How long until life support fails on the transport?" The officer looked down at his datapad with shaking hands. "Approximately 4 hours. But the pirates are Cretan. They do not usually keep witnesses alive even after receiving payment. They prefer to leave no evidence of their crimes." The room went very quiet. Even the alarm sound seemed to fade into the background. Jiwon looked at Minho and saw something he had only seen a few times before. Minho's entire body language had changed. His shoulders were squared. His eyes had gone cold and calculating. He looked like a completely different person from the polite security officer who had stood in the council chamber an hour ago. "We need to see the tactical data," Minho said. The officer blinked in confusion. "That information is restricted to council military personnel only. 4,000 children are going to die," Jiwon said quietly. "We need to see the tactical data. Now." Something in Jiwon's voice made the officer take a step backward. Later, the officer would report that in that moment the friendly human ambassador had looked at him with eyes that belonged to something ancient and dangerous. The officer found himself handing over his datapad without really knowing why. Hyeji took the device and her fingers began moving across the screen faster than the officer thought possible. "Connecting to the ship's tactical network," she muttered. "Bypassing standard security protocols. There, I have access." "You cannot just hack into our military systems?" The officer protested, but his voice was weak. "We just did," Hyeji said without looking up. The pirate ship is a Cretan Raider-class vessel. 16 crew members based on heat signatures. They have boarded the transport and are holding hostages in the main cargo bay. The transport's own security team was neutralized in the initial attack. All 17 guards are dead. Suman made a small sound of distress. Jiwon closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. When he spoke, his voice was very calm. Too calm. "Minho assessment." "Cretan raiders are scavengers," Minho said, staring at the tactical display Hyeji had pulled up. "They evolved from pack animals that stole kills from larger predators. They are fast but cowardly. They rely on overwhelming force and surprise. Once they encounter real resistance, they break formation and run. Can we reach the transport before the defense fleet?" Minho looked at Hyeji. She was already calculating. "If we take one of the Council's fast courier ships, we could be there in 40 minutes. Maybe less if we push the engines beyond recommended limits." "You cannot do this," the officer said. And now his voice was rising in pitch. "You are not authorized for military operations in Council space. This violates every treaty and protocol. High Counselor Thalen must approve any action." Jiwon turned to look at the officer. The movement was slow and deliberate. "How long will it take for the Council to debate and approve a military response?" "The emergency session is already underway. Such matters require careful consideration. We must evaluate all options, consider the diplomatic implications, vote on proper procedures. How long? Jiwan asked again. At least 2 hours for a decision, then 90 minutes for fleet mobilization. So 3.5 hours minimum, Minho said. Those children will be dead long before then. The officer's ears flattened against his head. We will pay the ransom. We will negotiate. This is how civilized species handle such situations. We do not resort to violence. Violence is already happening, Taeyang said quietly. 17 guards are dead. 4,000 children are held hostage by pirates who kill witnesses. Negotiation assumes the other side values life. These pirates do not, Jiwan made a decision. He had been preparing for this moment his entire career, even though he had never expected it to actually come. Hyeji, can you get us to the courier bay without going through main corridors? Yes, service tunnels run throughout the ship. I studied the schematics when we first arrived. Minho, what do you need? My team and our equipment. We packed for diplomatic duty, but we brought contingency gear, just in case. The officer was shaking his head frantically. No. You cannot do this. If you take unauthorized military action, humanity will lose all chance of council membership. You will be branded as pirates yourselves. I must report this immediately. Suman moved faster than the officer expected. She was suddenly standing very close to him. And though she was smaller than the Velnar officer, something about her presence made him freeze. You can report this, she said softly. Or you can wait 15 minutes and give us a head start. Then you can report that the humans overpowered you and stole a ship. You tried to stop us, but we were too strong. That is the official story. Do you understand? I cannot lie to the High Counselor. Then tell the truth, Jiwan said. Tell him that 5 humans decided that 4,000 children were more important than politics. Tell him we took full responsibility for our actions. Tell him that if the council wants to punish someone, they should punish me, not humanity. The officer looked between the 5 humans. Something was happening that he did not fully understand. These people who had seemed so friendly and harmless just minutes ago now looked like something else entirely. They moved differently. They spoke differently. Even the air around them felt different. Why are you doing this? The officer whispered. These are not your children. This is not your species. You gain nothing from this risk, Minho answered, and his voice was hard as stone. Because it is the right thing to do. Because we can. Because someone has to. The officer stood silent for a long moment. Then he slowly nodded. I will give you 15 minutes before I sound the alarm. But I cannot help you beyond that. That is all we need, Jiwan said. Thank you. They left the observation room quickly and quietly. Hiji led them through narrow service tunnels that were barely tall enough for humans to walk through. The tunnels had been designed for maintenance drones, not people. They had to move in single file, and the only light came from small emergency strips along the floor. As they moved through the darkness, Jiwan felt something changing inside himself. For 30 years, humanity had been careful. They had been diplomatic. They had hidden their true nature behind smiles and formal language. They had pretended to be something they were not, all to fit in with the galactic community. But some things were more important than fitting in. Some situations required action, not words. And somewhere out there in the darkness of space, 4,000 children were waiting for someone to save them. The humans had been patient long enough. Now it was time to hunt. Ambassador Jiwan stood perfectly still in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council. The room was enormous, with walls made of some kind of crystal that seemed to glow from within. Above him, the ceiling stretched so high he could barely see it. All around the circular chamber, 12 different alien species sat in elevated seats, looking down at where he stood in the center. Jiwan had been waiting for this moment for 3 years. Earth had sent him to represent humanity in their request to join the Galactic Council as full members. For 30 years, humans had only been allowed to visit Council space as guests. They could trade, they could talk, but they could not vote on any decisions. They could not have a real voice in how the galaxy was run. Today was supposed to change that. Behind Jiwan stood 4 other humans. Minho was the head of security for the human delegation. He was a tall man with short dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a formal diplomatic uniform, dark blue with silver buttons. Next to him stood Sumin, a young woman who specialized in understanding alien cultures and psychology. She was nervous, Jiwan could tell, but she hid it well. Then there was Hyeji, their science officer, who had spent 5 years learning 12 different alien languages and created most of the translation technology that humans now used. The last member of their small team was Taeyang, another security officer who rarely spoke but noticed everything. 5 humans. That was all Earth had sent to represent their entire species in front of the most powerful organization in the known galaxy. The High Counselor, a being named Thalen, cleared his throat. He was a Velnar, which meant he looked somewhat like a deer from Earth, but much larger. He stood on 2 legs like a human, but had long, elegant antlers growing from his head and large eyes that seemed to see everything at once. His fur was a silvery gray color that reflected the crystal lights of the chamber. Ambassador Jiwan, Thalen said in a voice that was surprisingly gentle, "We have reviewed humanity's petition for full membership in the Galactic Council. Your species has shown remarkable technological progress in a very short time. Your translation protocols have been particularly useful. We appreciate the trade, agreements you have honored, and the cultural exchanges you have facilitated." Jiwan felt his heart beat a little faster. Those were good words. Positive words. However, Thalen continued, and Jiwan's hope dimmed slightly. There was always a however. "We have some concerns that must be addressed before we can grant full membership status." Another counselor spoke up. This one was a Meklar, an insect-like being with multiple arms and compound eyes that glittered in the light. "Your combat simulations show unusual patterns. When your military conducts training exercises, they display psychological traits that are concerning to us." Jiwan kept his face neutral and friendly. He had practiced this expression in the mirror for months. "Could you elaborate on which patterns concern the Council? We want to address any issues directly." "Aggression," another counselor stated bluntly. This one was short and round with tentacles instead of arms. "Your species shows coordinated aggression in ways we have never seen before. When you hunt, you work together. When you fight, you seem to enjoy the challenge. This is not normal behavior for intelligent species." Jiwan took a slow breath. This was the difficult part. This was what humanity had been trying to explain for 3 decades, and the Council still did not understand. "Honored counselors," Jiwan began carefully. "Humanity understands that we are different from the other species in the Council. We come from a world where survival required certain traits, but we have evolved beyond our primitive origins. We seek only peace and cooperation. We have had no wars on Earth for 40 years now. We have eliminated poverty and hunger on our home world. We have chosen diplomacy over violence at every opportunity. And yet," Thalen said, leaning forward, "your people still train for combat. You still maintain military forces. You still teach your children games that involve hunting and chasing. Why do these things if you are truly peaceful?" Minho shifted slightly behind Jiwan. It was a tiny movement that probably no one else noticed, but Jiwan had worked with Minho for 5 years. He knew that small shift meant Minho wanted to speak, but this was not the time. This required careful diplomacy, not blunt truth. "We believe in being prepared," Jiwan said simply. "We hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. This is simple wisdom, not aggression." The council members looked at each other. They seemed to be having some kind of silent conversation, perhaps through technology that humans did not have access to. Finally, Thalen nodded. "We will take a recess to discuss this matter further. Please wait in the observation room. We will summon you when we have reached a decision." Jiwan bowed respectfully, and his small team followed him out of the grand chamber. They walked down a long hallway made of the same glowing crystal. No one spoke until they reached the observation room, a smaller space with comfortable seats and large windows that looked out into the blackness of space. As soon as the door closed behind them, Suman let out a long breath. That could have gone better. That could have gone much worse, Hyeji corrected. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. They are afraid of us. That is the core issue. They do not understand predator species because they have never met one before. Jiwan sat down heavily in one of the chairs. Every species on the council evolved from prey animals. They developed intelligence to escape from things that wanted to eat them. They built civilizations based on hiding, running, and cooperation against common threats. We are the first species they have encountered that evolved from hunters instead of the hunted. They think we are monsters, Taiyang said quietly. It was the first time he had spoken all day. They smile and they are polite, but they are afraid that one day we will stop being civilized and start hunting them. We need to make them understand, Suman said. We need to show them that humans are capable of controlling our instincts. That we choose peace not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to make that choice. Minho walked to the window and stood next to Hyeji. The problem is that they have no context for what we are. Imagine trying to explain color to someone who has always been blind. They cannot understand something they have never experienced. Then we teach them, Jiwan said firmly. We be patient. We be kind. We prove through our actions that humanity can be trusted. It has worked so far. We have gone from being completely unknown 30 years ago to being provisional members now. We will achieve full membership. It is only a matter of time. The room fell silent. Outside the window, stars stretched endlessly in all directions. Somewhere out there was Earth, humanity's homeworld, a small blue planet where apex predators had learned to build cities instead of hunting grounds, where creatures that once chased prey across vast plains now sat in rooms and debated philosophy and art. Jiwan believed deeply that humanity deserved a place in the galactic community. They had so much to offer. Their technology, their creativity, their determination to solve problems. Yes, they came from predators. Yes, they had a violent history. But they had overcome that history. They had chosen a better path. What none of them knew, sitting in that quiet observation room, was that in less than an hour, everything would change. An emergency would arise that would require humanity to show its true nature. Not the carefully controlled diplomatic version they had been presenting for 3 decades. Not the peaceful face they wore like a mask. The Council was about to see what humans really were when pushed to their limits. When innocent lives hung in the balance. When there was no time for careful words and political maneuvering. They were about to witness something that would terrify them and change the course of galactic history forever. But for now, in this moment, the 5 humans simply waited. They drank water from containers the Council had provided. They made small talk about nothing important. They tried to stay calm and professional. Minho looked at his watch, a simple mechanical device that he preferred over digital technology. They have been deliberating for 43 minutes. These things take time, Jiwan said. Patience is key. Patience. That word would soon take on a completely different meaning. Patience was not just waiting quietly. For a predator, patience was watching prey from a distance. Studying movement patterns, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The humans did not know it yet, but their patience was about to be tested in ways they could never have imagined. The courier ship was small and fast, designed to carry messages and important documents between Council worlds. It had never been intended for combat or rescue operations, but it was the fastest thing the humans could access without going through official channels. And speed was everything now. Minho sat in the pilot seat, his hands moving across controls that were designed for alien physiology. The buttons were too large, the spacing awkward for human fingers. But he made it work. Behind him, the rest of the team was preparing for what came next. Jiwan watched as his people transformed before his eyes. They were no longer wearing formal diplomatic uniforms. Those had been stripped away to reveal something underneath that made perfect sense now. Each member of the security team had been wearing tactical gear beneath their dress clothes. Thin, flexible armor that could stop most small arms fire. Equipment harnesses with attachment points for weapons and tools. You came prepared, Jiwan said, and there was no accusation in his voice, just observation. Minho glanced back at him. We always come prepared, Ambassador. You taught us that. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. From a concealed compartment in their diplomatic bags, weapons emerged. Not the large, obvious guns that would have been noticed and confiscated. These were compact, efficient, designed for close-quarters combat. Hyeji assembled hers with practiced movements, her fingers never fumbling despite the speed. Taeyang checked his ammunition with quiet focus. Even Suman, the diplomat who specialized in cultural understanding, was armed and checking her weapon like she had done it 1,000 times before. "Ambassador," Suman said, holding out a small pistol. "You should take this." Jiwon looked at the weapon for a long moment. He had not carried a gun in 15 years. He had deliberately chosen a path of words over violence, but words would not save those children today. He took the pistol. 35 minutes to intercept, Minho announced. "I am pushing the engines to 120% capacity. Any more and we risk a catastrophic failure." "That will have to be enough," Jiwon said. He moved to the communication station and opened a channel back to the Council flagship. "This is Ambassador Jiwon. We need real-time tactical data on the pirate vessel and the transport ship. We need interior layouts, security systems, everything you have." There was a long pause. Then High Counselor Thalen's voice came through, and he sounded like he was barely holding himself together. "Ambassador, what you are doing is against every council law. You are stealing a ship. You are planning unauthorized military action. Do you understand that humanity's petition for membership will be denied? That you personally will be arrested?" "I understand," Jiwon said calmly. "Send us the data anyway." "Why should I help you destroy everything your species has worked for?" Jiwon looked at the faces of his team. They were focused, determined, ready. "Because you know we are the only chance those children have. Your fleet will not arrive in time. Your negotiations will fail. The pirates will kill the hostages and disappear into deep space. You know this is true." Another pause. Then Thalen said quietly, "The data is being transmitted now. May the ancestors forgive me." Yeji's console lit up with information. Ship schematics, heat signature tracking, pirate movement patterns, everything they needed. She studied it all with intense concentration, her eyes moving rapidly across multiple screens at once. "The pirates have concentrated all the hostages in the main cargo bay," she reported. "It is the largest open space on the transport. They can watch all the children from a few positions. Smart tactics for their purpose." "How many pirates?" Taeyang asked. 16 confirmed. "All Cretan. They are positioned in groups of 4 at the main entry points to the cargo bay. The children are in the center of the bay with no cover. The pirates are using them as shields." Minho swore quietly in Korean. "They are expecting a frontal assault. Standard council military tactics would be to storm the entry points with overwhelming force. The pirates are ready for that." "We are not using standard council tactics," Jiwon said. "We are not the council." Suman looked up from where she was studying the transport's layout. "There are ventilation shafts that run throughout the ship. They are large enough for a human to crawl through. The Velnar who designed these ships are bigger than us, so their maintenance spaces are bigger too. Can we access the cargo bay through the ventilation system?" Minho asked. Hyeji nodded slowly. "Yes, there are 3 main vents that open into the cargo bay, but they are 10 meters above the floor. We would be exposed the moment we emerged." "Not if we do not all emerge at once," Taeyang said. He was looking at the tactical display with the focused intensity of someone solving a complex puzzle. "We use the high ground. One person creates a distraction while the others position for synchronized strikes." Minho turned his chair around to face the team. "This is not going to be clean. We are talking about a hostage rescue in a confined space against enemies who are willing to use children as shields. Everything that can go wrong probably will go wrong. Then we adapt," Jiwon said simply. "We plan for what we can control and react to what we cannot. This is what humans do. This is what we have always done. The pirates will not expect us," Suman added. "The council species all think in similar ways because they all evolved from prey animals. They expect frontal assaults and defensive positions. They do not expect flanking maneuvers or vertical attacks. We have an advantage in unpredictability." 20 minutes to intercept," Minho announced. "We need a concrete plan. Who goes where and who does what?" They spent the next 15 minutes planning. It was not the careful, methodical planning that the council military would do, with committees and simulations and backup plans for every contingency. It was fast, efficient, and based on trust. Each person knew their role. Each person understood what needed to happen. Jiwon would go in first through the central ventilation shaft. He would be the distraction, the thing the pirates focused on while the others moved into position. Minho and Taeyang would take the 2 side vents, positioning themselves for clear shots at the pirates while minimizing risk to the hostages. Hyeji would stay on the pirate ship, using its systems to control lights and doors, creating confusion. Suman would follow Jiwon in, but her job was not to fight. Her job was to get to the children and keep them calm. 5 minutes, Minho said. Through the viewport, they could see the 2 ships ahead. The transport was dark except for emergency lights. The pirate vessel was attached to it like a parasite, its docking collar connecting the 2 ships together. They will detect us soon, Hieji warned. The courier ship's approach will show on their sensors. Let them see us, Ji-won said. One small courier ship with no weapons. They will think we are council negotiators coming to pay the ransom. They will not see us as a threat, and that was humanity's greatest advantage, Ji-won realized. Everyone underestimated them. The council saw them as barely civilized primitives trying to act diplomatic. The pirates would see a small ship with no visible weapons and assume it was harmless. No one in the galaxy understood what humans really were. They were about to learn. The courier ship docked with the pirate vessel without any resistance. As predicted, the pirates saw them as negotiators, not threats. Minho cut the engines and the ship went silent. Remember, Ji-won said to his team, the children are the priority. Everything else is secondary. We do not take unnecessary risks. We do not try to be heroes. We get in, we get the children out, we leave. What about the pirates? Taeyang asked. Ji-won's expression went cold. If they surrender, we take them prisoner. If they resist, we do what is necessary. They moved through the airlock into the pirate ship. It smelled bad, like unwashed bodies and old food. The corridors were narrow and poorly lit. The pirates were sloppy, undisciplined. They had not bothered to post guards at the docking port because they did not expect trouble. That was their first mistake. Their last mistake would come soon enough. Yeji split off from the group, heading toward the pirate ship's bridge. She moved like a shadow, making no sound. The others continued toward the transport ship, finding the ventilation access points exactly where the schematics said they would be. In position, Minho whispered into his communicator. In position? Taeyang confirmed. Ji-won looked at Suman. She nodded. She was scared, he could see that. But she was ready. Yeji, cut the lights in the cargo bay in 30 seconds. Then give us intermittent power. Make them think it is a system malfunction. Understood. Yeji's voice came back. Good hunting, good hunting. The words that every human understood on an instinctive level. The words that connected them to ancestors who had hunted mammoth across frozen plains, who had tracked prey for days without rest, who had become the most successful predators Earth had ever produced. The council was watching this through the cameras that Hiji had activated. They would see everything that was about to happen. They would finally understand what humanity really was beneath the diplomatic smiles. Ji-won climbed into the ventilation shaft and began crawling toward the cargo bay. Behind him, Suman followed. In other shafts, Minho and Taeyang were doing the same. They moved in silence, controlled, patient. Below them, 16 pirates held 4,000 children hostage. The pirates thought they were safe. They thought they had all the power. The journey back to the council flagship took 3 hours. The transport ship's engines had been badly damaged by the pirates, so Minho had to pilot both ships slowly and carefully. In the cargo bay, Suman and Ji-won stayed with the children, speaking to them softly, making sure they were calm and safe. Many of the children did not want to let go of the humans. They clung to Suman's arms and legs. They held onto Ji-won's hands. Some of the older children helped the younger ones, and they kept looking at the humans with expressions that mixed fear and gratitude and confusion. Hyeji moved through the group, using a medical scanner to check each child for injuries. Most were physically unharmed, just scared and traumatized. She worked quickly and efficiently, her movements gentle despite the clinical nature of her task. Taeyang stood guard at the cargo bay entrance, watching the unconscious pirates who were now tied up and secured. His weapon was ready, but his eyes kept drifting back to the children. Later, Ji-won would learn that Taeyang had a daughter back on Earth, who was about the same age as many of these children. That was why he had volunteered for this mission without hesitation. When they finally docked with the council flagship, the bay doors opened to reveal hundreds of Velnar adults waiting anxiously. Parents who had been told their children were in danger, that they might never see them again. Now they stood frozen, not quite believing that the transport had returned safely. Then the first child appeared at the airlock, holding Suman's hand. The child's mother let out a cry that was pure joy and relief, and she ran forward. Within seconds, the orderly waiting crowd became a chaos of reunions, parents rushing forward to embrace their children. crying and laughing happening at the same time, families holding each other like they would never let go. Jiwon stood back and watched. He felt exhausted, like every bit of energy had been drained from his body. His hands were shaking slightly from adrenaline that had nowhere to go now that the danger was over. But seeing the children reunited with their families made every risk worth it. High Counselor Thalen approached slowly. His face was difficult to read, his large eyes reflecting the lights of the bay. Other counselors followed behind him, all 12 species represented. They formed a semicircle around the 5 humans, and for a moment no one spoke. "You violated every law we have," Thalen finally said. His voice was quiet, not angry exactly, but not friendly either. "You stole a ship. You conducted unauthorized military operations. You killed 14 sentient beings. You acted without permission or oversight." Jiwon met his gaze steadily. "Yes, we did all of those things. By the laws of the Galactic Council, you should be arrested. Your entire species should be banned from Council space permanently. What you did today was illegal and dangerous and completely against everything we believe in." "I understand," Jiwon said. "We are prepared to face the consequences of our actions." Thalen looked around at the scenes of reunion happening all around them. A father was holding his daughter and crying. 2 mothers were thanking Suman over and over, their children safe in their arms. An older child was explaining excitedly to his parents how the humans had appeared from nowhere, like heroes from the old stories. "I watched everything through the security feeds," Thalen said quietly. "I watched you negotiate with the pirate leader. I watched you move toward him despite the danger. I watched your team work together with a coordination we have never seen before. And I watched you neutralize the threat in minutes, something our military said would be impossible without significant hostage casualties." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was filled with something that might have been wonder or might have been fear, perhaps both. "I have spent my entire life studying the evolution of intelligent species. Every civilization in the Council evolved from prey animals. We developed intelligence to hide better, to run faster, to organize our societies for mutual protection against threats. We think in terms of defense and survival. We avoid conflict whenever possible. Even our military is designed primarily for deterrence, not action." Thalen stepped closer to Jiwon. "But your species evolved from predators. You developed intelligence to hunt better, to coordinate attacks, to pursue prey across vast distances. You think in terms of offense and action. And somehow, impossibly, you learned to control those instincts, to use them only when necessary, to be civilized." Around them, more counselors were gathering. News of what had happened was spreading through the flagship. Crew members stopped their work to watch. The crowd was growing larger by the minute. "What you did today terrifies me," Thalen admitted. "The speed, the efficiency, the cold focus you displayed. It goes against everything I believe about how intelligent beings should behave. You moved like the ancient predators from our nightmares, the creatures our ancestors fled from in the darkness." Jiwon said nothing. He simply waited. "But you also saved 4,000 children without hesitation," Thalen continued. "You risked everything, your careers, your species' future in the galactic community, all of it. For children that were not yours. For people you had never met. You did not ask for payment. You did not seek glory. You simply did what needed to be done." The High Counselor turned to address the growing crowd. The Galactic Council was founded on the principle that civilization means rejecting violence, that intelligent beings solve problems through discussion and compromise, not force. We have believed this for 10,000 years. He looked back at the humans. "Today I learned that we were both right and wrong. Violence should be rejected, but sometimes, rarely, action is necessary, and when that moment comes, we need people who are capable of acting. People who can do what we cannot." Thalen gestured to the other counselors. They had been talking among themselves, their expressions serious. Now they came forward, forming an official assembly right there in the docking bay. "The Council has convened an emergency session," Thalen announced. The vote was unanimous. Humanity is granted full membership in the Galactic Council, effective immediately. Furthermore, we formally request that Earth establish a dedicated security force to protect Council space and its inhabitants. Jiwon blinked in surprise. This was not what he had expected. "High Counselor, with respect, we cannot accept command of your military. That is not why we came here." "We are not offering you command of our military," Thalen said. "We are asking you to protect us. To be what you were today. Guardians who act when action is needed. Protectors who stand between innocents and those who would harm them." You want humans to be the Council's soldiers, Minho said, and there was an edge to his voice. No, Thalen replied firmly. We want you to be our shield. There is a difference. We are not asking you to conquer or control. We are asking you to defend and protect. It is what you are already willing to do, as you proved today. Suman stepped forward, a small child still holding her hand. What if we refuse? What if humanity does not want that responsibility? Then we will respect your decision, Thalen said. But I hope you will consider it, because today showed us something important. The galaxy needs protectors, and you are uniquely suited for that role. The crowd of Velnar parents was listening to all of this. One father stepped forward, his young daughter in his arms. He looked at Jiwan with eyes full of gratitude. You saved my child, he said simply. You risked your life for someone you did not know. How can we ever thank you? Take care of her, Jiwan said quietly. Love her. Keep her safe. That is all the thanks we need. The father nodded, tears streaming down his face. Other parents were nodding too. Some began to applaud. The sound started small but grew quickly, filling the entire docking bay. Not just the Velnar, but council crew members from every species. They clapped and cheered for the 5 humans who stood exhausted and overwhelmed by the response. Jiwan looked at his team. Minho's face was carefully neutral, but there was satisfaction in his eyes. Taeyang actually smiled just a little. Hyeji looked like she might cry. Suman was definitely crying, the small child in her arms looking up at her in concern. We will need to discuss this with Earth, Jiwan said to Thalen. This is not a decision I can make alone. It affects all of humanity. Of course, Thalen agreed. Take whatever time you need, but know that you have already shown us what humanity can be. You have shown us that predators can choose to protect instead of destroy. That strength can serve compassion. That evolution does not determine destiny. As the applause continued, Jiwan thought about what this meant for humanity's future. They had come to the stars hoping to be accepted as equals, to prove they were civilized despite their violent history, and in one afternoon everything had changed. They had not hidden what they were. They had not pretended to be something else. They had simply acted according to their nature when it mattered most. And somehow, impossibly, that was exactly what the galaxy needed. 3 weeks later, Jiwan received a message from Earth. The human governments had debated and discussed and finally reached a decision. Humanity would accept the role of galactic protectors, but on their terms. They would defend the innocent. They would respond to threats, but they would not conquer or control. They would be guardians, not rulers. The message ended with something that made Jiwan smile. It was from a children's program on Earth, where young people had learned about. They had never been more wrong in their lives. The ventilation shaft was cramped and uncomfortable. Jiwan crawled forward slowly, careful not to make any sound that might alert the pirates below. His knees hurt from the hard metal surface and sweat dripped down his face. Behind him, he could hear Suman's quiet breathing as she followed. Through the metal grating beneath him, Jiwan could see into the cargo bay. The sight made his chest tighten with anger. 4,000 children sat huddled together in the center of the massive space. Most of them were Velnar, with their large eyes and soft fur. They looked so young, so frightened. Many were crying silently, their small bodies shaking. Some of the older children had their arms around the younger ones, trying to comfort them even though they were just as scared. Around the edges of the bay, 16 Cretan pirates watched the hostages. The pirates looked like a cross between wolves and hyenas from Earth, with long snouts full of sharp teeth and mangy fur that stuck up in patches. They carried energy weapons that glowed with a sickly green light. They laughed and talked among themselves, making jokes that Jiwan could not understand but knew were probably cruel. One pirate walked between the groups of children, kicking at any who moved too much. A small child whimpered when the pirate's boot came too close, and the pirate laughed at the sound of fear. Jiwan felt something cold settle into his chest. It was not rage exactly. It was something older than rage, something more focused. In position. Minho's voice whispered through the communicator in Jiwan's ear. In position, Taeyang confirmed. Ready on the bridge, Yiji added. I have control of the lighting systems and door locks. On your mark, Ambassador. Jiwan looked down through the grating at the pirates below. He studied their positions, their movements, their blind spots. He counted the seconds between when they looked up and when they looked down. He watched how they held their weapons, whether their fingers were on the triggers or not. This was what humans had done for hundreds of thousands of years. They watched, they learned, they waited for the perfect moment. "Mark," Jiwan said quietly. The lights went out. In the sudden darkness, the pirates shouted in confusion. Children screamed. Then the emergency lights flickered on, casting the bay in a dim red glow, then darkness again, then light. The pattern repeated, making it impossible for eyes to adjust. Jiwan moved. He pushed the grating aside and dropped through the opening. It was a 10-meter fall, but he had planned for this. He landed in a roll that absorbed the impact, coming up in a crouch with his weapon raised. The pirates were still confused, still trying to understand what was happening. They thought it was a system malfunction. They did not think to look up. One pirate finally noticed Jiwan. His eyes went wide and he opened his mouth to shout a warning. Jiwan fired once. The pirate dropped without making a sound. That got everyone's attention. "Intruder," one of the pirates screamed. "We have an intruder in the bay." 4 pirates turned toward Jiwan, raising their weapons. This was the dangerous moment, the moment when everything could go wrong. Jiwan was exposed in the open with nowhere to hide. The pirates had clear shots at him, but they also had to worry about hitting the children behind him. And they had to divide their attention between the threat in front of them and the hostages they were supposed to be guarding. And they were scared. Jiwan could see it in their eyes. They had not expected resistance. 2 shots rang out from above. 2 more pirates fell. Minho and Taeyang had taken their shots from the side vents, using the moment of distraction. Now the pirates were truly panicked. They spun around trying to figure out where the attacks were coming from. Some fired wildly upward, their energy bolts hitting the ceiling and walls. Others grabbed children, using them as shields. "Stop shooting or the young ones die," the pirate leader screamed. He was holding a small Velnar child by the neck, his weapon pressed against the child's head. Jiwan slowly stood up, keeping his weapon pointed at the floor. "Let the children go. You can still leave here alive." "You think we are stupid?" the pirate leader snarled. "You are alone. 3, maybe 4 attackers at most. We are 16. We have 4,000 hostages. You have no leverage." "I am going to give you one more chance," Jiwan said, and his voice was very calm. "Release the children. Surrender. You will be taken into custody, but you will live." The pirate leader laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Or what? You will kill us all? While we hide behind children? You do not have the stomach for that. You council types never do. You are too civilized, too soft." Jiwan tilted his head slightly. "We are not from the council." Something in those words made the pirate leader pause. He looked at Jiwan more carefully, seeing him for the first time. Seeing the way he stood, the way he moved, the coldness in his eyes. "What are you?" the pirate whispered. "Human," Jiwan said simply. The word meant nothing to the pirates. They had never heard of Earth or its people. But in the council chambers far away, Thalin and the other counselors were watching through the security feeds that Hyeji had activated. They heard that word and they understood what was about to happen. "Watch them," Thalin said quietly to his fellow counselors. "Watch what humanity truly is." In the cargo bay, Jiwan began to walk forward. Not quickly, not aggressively, just walking, one step at a time toward the pirate leader who held the child. "Stay back," the pirate shouted. "I will kill this one." "No," Jiwan said. "You will not." He kept walking. "I am warning you." Jiwan's eyes never left the pirate leader's face. He was reading every micro-expression, every tiny movement. He could see the pirate's finger on the trigger. He could see the slight tremor in the pirate's hand. Fear, uncertainty, hesitation. Humans had evolved to read faces, to understand what other creatures were thinking and feeling. It was how pack hunters coordinated. It was how they knew when prey was about to bolt, or when a rival was about to attack. Jiwan could see that this pirate was not a killer of children. He was a thief, a coward, someone who stole from the weak. But he had limits, lines he would not cross. You are not going to kill that child, Ji-won said, still walking slowly forward. Because if you do, my friends up there will kill you instantly. And you know that if you harm one child, you lose your only protection. Then we will kill all of you, and we will not be quick about it. The pirate's weapon wavered slightly. You are bluffing. Am I? Ji-won stopped walking. He was now only 5 meters away. Look at my eyes. Look at how I move. Do I look like someone from the council? Do I look like prey? The pirate leader stared at Ji-won, and for the first time, he really saw what he was facing. This was not a soft council diplomat who would negotiate and compromise. This was something else. Something that looked at him the way he looked at food. We evolved from pack hunters, Ji-won said quietly. We chased prey across continents. We hunted animals 10 times our size by simply refusing to give up, by following them until they collapsed from exhaustion. We became the apex predators of our world, and then we became civilized. We learned to control our instincts. We chose peace. He took another step forward. But when innocents are threatened, when children are in danger, something old wakes up inside us. We remember what we are, what we have always been. The pirate leader was shaking now. The child in his arms was crying softly. Let the child go, Ji-won said. This is your last chance. For a long moment, nothing happened. The entire cargo bay was silent except for the quiet crying of children. Every pirate was watching their leader, waiting to see what he would do. Every human was ready to act, their fingers on their triggers, their bodies coiled to move. Then the pirate leader made his choice. He threw the child away from him and raised his weapon toward Ji-won. He was fast, but humans were faster. 3 shots rang out simultaneously. The pirate leader fell. So did 2 others who had started to raise their weapons. Minho and Taeyang had taken their shots with perfect timing, perfect accuracy. The remaining pirates panicked completely. Some tried to run, some tried to grab more children as shields, some just froze, unable to decide what to do. Ji-won moved. He crossed the distance to the nearest pirate in 3 long strides, faster than the pirate could react. He struck the pirate's weapon hand, grabbed the weapon as it fell, and used the butt of it to knock the pirate unconscious. The whole sequence took less than 2 seconds. Minho dropped from his vent, landing smoothly and immediately engaging 2 more pirates. Taeyang did the same from the other side. They moved with coordinated precision, like parts of a single organism. The pirates who tried to run found the doors locked. Hyeji had sealed every exit. There was nowhere to go. Those who tried to fight found themselves outmatched. The humans were not just better trained. They were fundamentally different. They did not panic. They did not hesitate. They simply did what needed to be done with cold efficiency. In less than 3 minutes, every pirate was either unconscious or dead. The ones who survived were the ones who dropped their weapons and raised their hands immediately. The ones who chose to fight did not survive. When the last pirate fell, the cargo bay went quiet. Ji-won stood in the center of the space, breathing hard, his weapon still raised. Around him, 4,000 children stared in shocked silence. Then Suman emerged from the vent. She had waited as instructed, staying hidden until the fighting was over. Now she dropped down carefully and walked.